Hello, Debs K here. Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to my little studio this week. Okay, so playtime this week. We're going to have a little bit of fun and just see if we can create a verdigris copper effect. As you can see there, I've done 4 little paintings, used a few different types of paper and a couple of products. But the 2 to the left-hand side, as you're looking at them there, you can do with just pastels and water. The other 2, we've got some extra little bits and pieces. So we'll have a look at those now. Okay, so in addition to the sort of pastels that I've got over on the right-hand side there, which were just sort of some I pulled out from my bigger palette that I thought, were kind of good verdigris colours. Didn't use all of them by any means. But in addition, over there you can see some watercolours there, a green and a blue and a sort of quatacrinone gold, and a few sparkly watercolours there in the discs. In addition to that, over on the left hand side, I've got a selection of inks there, some alcohol in a spray bottle and some water in a spray bottle. Also, we've got some Winsor & Newton workable fixative and some clear gesso. And so that's what we use. So let's get playing. So, okay, let's have a play and see how we get on creating sort of like a verdigris copper effect. Now, as you can see, I've just done 4 very simple sketches. The idea of this is not to do a landscape as such, maybe a sort of vague idea of an abstract landscape, but really what I want to do is play with these papers and play with a couple of different techniques and see if we can create that verdigris copper. I love that copper look, so I've never had a go at creating this, and I want to see, play with textures and see, just see if we can get it going. So I've got a few different papers here. I've chosen, this one's basically just a very cheap pad. As you can probably see, I've just done a very quick charcoal sketch, just using a bit of charcoal, just, chucked it on, given myself a rough idea of maybe a tree over this side, maybe it's a river. I think I'll go for a river, because what I want to do is maybe give a little bit of light in this area and then cast that down onto, say a river there. A few bushes there and a few clouds in the sky. But as I say, this is not necessarily to create this scene as such, and if it does happen to come out, it's going to be very abstract and not, it's more about the textures really. And we'll see what we come up with. So anyway, this is, as I say, very cheap paper that I just picked up from the local cheapy store. It's just got as you can probably see from there, it's got a grain on it. I reckon it's probably similar to maybe a Canson Mi-Tente or something like that. And then below that we've got Lux Archival, and that's Lux Archival. Then we've got Pastel Matte, the Anthracite. I wanted to see whether a darker background is going to help us in creating this sort of effect. And this is my good old favourite Fisher 400. Now I'm suspecting these 2 are going to react pretty similarly. But what I'm going to do, this one, I'm just going to use, I've done a charcoal sketch, but you can do it with a pastel if you prefer, or whatever or not even do one at all, just go straight on in with your pastels. But I just wanted to give myself some idea. So this one, what I'm going to do, this one won't take, sorry, bit back to front, start at the beginning, Mrs. K. This one is not going to take any sort of wet treatment, so I don't know whether we're going to be able to create, and it's not going to take very many layers, but we might be able to get a bit of fixative on there, which might help us extend it a little bit more. But basically I'm going to just be doing this in all pastels, possibly some fixative as we go along, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We'll see how we get on. I've got no idea whether it will take fixative, this paper. Probably would, I would imagine. So that one basically is going to be all dry pastels. This one, I'm going to just use water. We're going to do sort of wet under paintings. As I say, we want to build up these layers. So this one I'm going to try with just water. So basically, if you've got a few pastels and a tap, you can do either of these 2, no problem at all. And on these 2, I'm probably, I suspect that they're going to take a lot more layers, these 3, than this. And with these 2, to have a play, I'm going to use some water, some alcohol, maybe a bit of fixative, and also maybe a bit of clear gesso to see if we can get some sort of extra texture going on there. So, okay, without further ado, let's get painting. And so, as we're going to be building up lots of layers, the first thing I want to do is set that charcoal into the paper as much as I can. Now, I know the paper to the top left-hand side, that cheap texture paper, that's not going to take any kind of wet treatment at all. So we're going to be coming in and rubbing that in a little bit later. So I'll do the wet ones first. So literally on this first one, coming in with a paintbrush and a little bit of water, trying to use the brush to create that little bit of texture going on, even with this charcoal at this beginning stage. On this one, we're not going to use anything but pastels and that bit of water. So let's see what we can get going on. So now coming up to the pastel matte anthracite on the top right here, doing exactly the same thing with the water there. Just as I say, we're not, it doesn't matter if everything's not in the right place. We're just creating these rough landscapes. So getting in a little bit of water there, setting that charcoal into the paper. Not particularly, being too fussed about texture on that, just seeing what it does really. Then on this bottom one here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking some alcohol and just spraying that in there. On that bottom one, I really want to encourage those drips to go on. I decided, as I had the alcohol in my hand, I'd add it to the top one and see whether it made a difference with the water there. So whilst they're drying, we'll come on back up to this top one on the left hand side here. As you can see, what we want to do now is kind of get some base layers going on. Now on 3 of these, I'm going to go in with the pastels, and to the one on the bottom right hand side there, I'm going to be using a mixture of ink and watercolour to create the background there. So basically, starting with this one up in the top left hand side here, just getting a few basic colours going on, some browns and turquoises and things, just the kind of colours that are in the kind of copper verdigris that you find. So what I'll do is I'll whiz through this bit, just get these underpaintings in, and I'll see you in a mo. So just as I'm coming to the end of the underpainting on this one, as you can see, that texture of the paper really is sort of showing up there. Now for me, this is one of the reasons that I don't particularly like these textured papers. Probably because I like to paint, usually a little bit more realistically. And I find that, I tend to fight with the paper, to try and cover that texture. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in with a piece of pipe foam insulation and rubbing it all in. But I did want to try it on this exercise because obviously I didn't know whether that texture of the paper was actually going to help us in creating the texture of the copper verdigris there. So, but for the time being, this is just literally the underpaintings that I'm putting down at the moment, just getting a bit of colour on. So that's number 1 done, and as you can see, working on number 2. So I'll see you in a mo. So working on the pastel matte now, the anthracite, and as you can see sort of how the colours, I'm using the same colours in those 3 little paintings there, and how much, they vary in their strength. That first one's really quite wishy-washy. Second one on Lux Archival, little bit stronger, and obviously on that darker anthracite background, it's coming up richer again. So obviously, depending on what kind of look you're wanting to go for, obviously a darker background really does help those colours sort of pop. And so now I'm working on the Fisher paper there, which I know will take lots of abuse, bless it. And I'm using a mixture of watercolours and inks there. And I'm kind of mixing the two as I go. That was a happy accident at the time, but it seems to have worked. So I was mixing the watercolour and the ink as I go. Wanted to create that real nice sort of drippy feel there. And as you can see, I've used some of those sparkly watercolours in there. Seeing if that's going to sort of help with that copper look. Okay then, so I'll let you watch this and I'll see you in a mo. So as you can see, started building up the layers over on number one there, rubbed it in again, added a few more, and just starting to build that up really. And so now you see me, I'm just coming in with some water in a spray bottle, and I'm spraying the Lux Archival one and the Pastel Matte with the Anthracite. Spraying those with just water, let those dry, and then you see me now coming back in with that rose gold watercolour, which obviously because I've set in that into the paper, I can, put that over the top. Want to see if I can sort of like really, build up some depth going on in there and, introduce that lovely little bit of sparkle. So you're going to see me sort of like going through the paintings, the Lux Archival, I'm purely just going to be using water, as I mentioned. And these two on the right-hand side, it's going to be a mixture of water and alcohol. And we'll come back in with some fixative and clear gesso and all sorts going on there. But I'll let you watch the, sort of me build up the colours a little bit further, and I'll see you in a mo. And so as you can start to see, you know, building up those layers, we're really starting to get some really interesting effects there. And on that Lux Archival one at the bottom there, you know, in the tree, we've got some lovely little drips and things going on. So what I'm just doing there now is I'm just popping a little bit of fixative on those two to the left-hand side there, just to allow me to get a little bit more, a few more layers on there. So going to build those up a little bit further. So do hope you're enjoying this video and, you know, hopefully learning something along the way and seeing what you can actually do. You know, even with the Lux Archival there with just water, you know, we really are starting to build up some lovely texture. And obviously while we're playing with the, you know, with the extras, the fixative and the, you know, the watercolours and things to the right-hand side, we really, you know, those really are getting some more texture on there. So as I say, hope you're enjoying the video. And if you do, please do give me a thumbs up. You know, pop any questions you may have or pop me a comment, say hello. I'd really appreciate it. And obviously, if you could subscribe to my channel, if you haven't already, that would be wonderful. And obviously, if you'd like to watch the full-length version of this, where I'm talking as I go, and obviously we slow down and we go through sort of like each process, please consider joining me over on Patreon. I'd love to see you over there. All right then, so I'll let you watch this run through and I'll see you in a mo. Let's put some more alcohol on here. What I'd like to do is really encourage it to drip down now and sort of merge a bit more. So I'm going to put quite a bit of alcohol on that, and not sure what it'll do to the pastel mat. So I'm not sure, but let's have a go. Okay. So that's it. Oh, it's gone down onto my bottom one. Oh well. I'm not quite sure I wanted you down there. Oh hum. All good fun. Let me see if I can, oh. I think I'll put a bit more in here then, just as well. Ooh. Ooh, actually, see, happy accidents and all that. All right, what I'll just do is get a bit of tissue and just stop it running down too much more. Obviously, if I'm working on a normal painting, I'd only have one painting there, so we wouldn't have that issue. Now what I'm going to do is I've got some liquid gesso here, and I'm going to play with that and put a little bit on here. Obviously, because I've sprayed this with alcohol, those pastels are fairly set in there. A little bit might come off, but not too much. So I'm seeing what the clear gesso will do. I've just got an old sponge here, and I'm going to try both sides and see what kind of effects I get. So I'm going to go with the back bit here first, and we'll just dab it on and see what happens. Then we then come back with pastels later. Okay, so this is dry now, and as you can see, even though it says clear gesso, where you put it on, it kind of does give this kind of milky effect over everything, and obviously, you know, dulls things down. And where you put it, where I put it on thickly there, it actually isn't clear. I guess it's picked up the pigment underneath, and it's come through. So just be aware of that. It's not totally clear, and obviously these are pastel paintings, so. I do want pastel on them, not just everything. So what I'm going to do with this one, I want to add a little bit more richness. Let's see what happens if I start scumbling this over. Ever so, you see how it's giving us another little dimension there. you can play away as long as you want, really. It can be quite addictive. Obviously, at some stage, you'll get to the point where you're you know, where you will run out of tooth. But again, you know, you can keep going back several times and you know, several times and you know, go in with alcohol a few times. We put several layers of alcohol on this one, and all it does is sink it back into the tooth, and then that's giving you just that little bit more. All right, now my temptation now is to make it into a landscape. All of them I want to go and tidy up, but actually I really enjoy the effects, and obviously we can go on and, you know, I'm not sure which is my favourite. Actually, I'm loving what's going on here. I love the rich colours. And yet I love this as well. I mean, that's the thing. If you're doing a Copper Verdigris, and then I kind of love the rich, you know, the reds and things we've got in here and the more burnished effect. Obviously, we could come in here and, you know, add some more, you know, sort of more golds and reds and things, and burnish the places, you know, that we want it. And so you can have that sort of, you know, that sort of effect. Blend your colours, you know, if you're not liking what's on there, you know, just blend them out a little bit. Again, you can go back in. Again, with the gesso, you see it's going to go over the top. So each time you go back in with a kind of different thing. And obviously, you, like I say, you'll get to a point where, you know, really that's quite enough texture. You know, you don't want any more. But that's it. Each, you know, you'll find your own. You'll find your own. But if you can see sort of like how that gesso is working and how it just picks up. Works beautifully on the water, doesn't it? Just sort of, you know, picking that up. All right then, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you have a go at creating some verdigris. And obviously if you use a different method, you know, you find a new way, I'd love to hear about it. But yes, I think I am going to do, I think I am going to give this sort of, maybe this kind of abstracty scene. It's quite attractive on a bigger piece of paper where you can have a little bit more movement, because obviously I'm trying to do everything very small here. But yeah, I think good experiment, good playtime, and you can see sort of some versatility. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you know, you don't necessarily have to use it for creating Copper Verdigris. If you can imagine, you know, you put little tiny bits of gesso on to create distance, you know, for example, if these were aqua flowers in the distance or whatever, where it just sort of catches, and it's a little bit random, so you're not dotting. And obviously with the chunky pastels, it's hard sometimes to get delicate marks. And using gesso like this is how you can do it. Okay, so as I say, hope you've enjoyed this little session, and thanks so much for watching and spending some of your time with me. Have a lovely week and happy painting.